Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're just going to give everybody a minute or two to funnel in now that the webinar started. So just sit tight for a couple minutes and we will jump in. Just going to give everybody one more minute and then we'll jump in. So just hang tight and thank you for joining. All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and jump in. So first and foremost, thank you for joining our LeagueApps Learning for this week, where we're going to focus on member cleanup tools. So we're really excited about this particular segment. We have a few really powerful features in the LeagueApps system that allows us to just clean up any mistakes. We know nobody is perfect. People delete people. We create duplicate accounts. We have some precautions in place to prevent users from doing too much, but there are still ways that you find people separated. And we're going to walk through a few different scenarios today, just showing you how to reconcile some of those scenarios. So we'll take a couple of our more common situations and address them one by one. Before we jump in, though, I just want to introduce myself and my colleague who are going to be running the show today. My name is Melissa Macaluso, and I'm a senior customer success manager here at LeagueApps. Been with the team for a little over 3 years, just walking with the partners on our system, teaching them how to get up and running, and making sure, as they continue to use LeagueApps, they're feeling self-sufficient, confident, and like they're getting the most out of the system. So that has evolved into also being able to participate in some of these, which is nice to get a little bit of a longer reach with our partner base. And I am also joined here with Brittni Dunn, who is our senior customer support specialist. So Brittni is on mute, but she will be handling our Q&A tool. So as we are going through this, if you look in your Zoom up at the top, you should see Q&A. Feel free to just go in there and submit any questions. Brittni will be tackling those in real time, and I'll keep an eye on them as well towards the end. Depending on how much time we have, I will take a look and just see if there are any questions that would be good for everybody to have addressed. So go ahead and jump in there when you are ready. And just another, let's come to here. Really quick before we jump in as well, and I'll circle back to this at the end of the webinar, but just want to highlight some resources that are always available to you. LeagueApps is constantly changing and updating to be the best system that it can be. So you can always track our updates, be brought up to speed here in the system updates, our support site loaded with tons of valuable information. We'll be following up with a copy of this support article as well for our member merge tool, various events that we're running to really enhance the LeagueApps community, and then our access to our support team who is available 365 days a year via support@leagueapps.com and our live chat. So we'll circle back to this before the end of the call as well. But with that, we are going to go ahead and jump right in. So we're going to use a couple specific examples to highlight how we can use what we'll call our member merge tool. It is a very powerful feature that when you find yourself in a situation where parents create multiple accounts, there's 2 children, the list can go on with different scenarios, but how can we consolidate? How can we clean it up so that your member base is up to date and in the cleanest possible state? So we'll use these 3 examples: forgetful Frank, an adult, forgets their username or password. Instead of trying to recover it, they create a second account using a different email address. So how can we consolidate those 2 accounts into one? Then we'll jump into the cloned child. This is one we see quite often. Two parents or guardians create separate accounts for their player and register them into a program. How do we consolidate not only those two players, but get the two guardians into that same account as well? And then we will handle a ghost account situation. A parent maybe reaches out and says they're not seeing an invoice or a registration in their dashboard. That is likely because they have duplicate accounts. So how can we merge those two together? As we're going through this, I'll highlight some little tips and important notes. One in particular, just you must select the primary member who you want the information to be merged into. And that's always where you're going to start. Generally, you want to make sure you're using the account that is up to date, has the proper registrations that are associated with it. And as we're going through, I'll highlight, okay, this is how you can tell this is probably the primary member versus the secondary. And when we're merging that secondary in, all of the primary information will stay in order. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump into our management console. So the first scenario we're going to start with, forgetful Frank. A parent or guardian member, they might be in a family, they might just be an adult user who's registering for a program, but they forget their username or password and they go ahead and create a second member profile using a different email. So you should have the first and last name. We're going to call this one Forgetful Frank, very creative, and open up both of these profiles. So in this instance, opening up in two different tabs, we have Forgetful Frank, Melissa LeagueApps +7 at Gmail, and then another Forgetful Frank here with just a different email address. There are certain variables that confirm that a member can be merged. That is based on the address, the first name, and the last name. So anytime those are the same, the system will flag as it being a potential duplicate member. You want to identify which is the primary, which one do I want to keep? So there are no registrations in this case. If there were, we would want to use that particular member. But once you identify, okay, this is the email address, we'll go with that they want to continue to use. Make sure you're on that profile and click Merge Member. Clicking on this, you'll see the two accounts here. The primary is the one that we want to keep. So they want to use +92. You'll click Merge and continue. And now when you refresh that page, there will just be one Forgetful Frank in one account to move forward with. And it will take on, again, that primary information that was set up, especially with the email address. So now if I search Forgetful Frank, and and hit enter, there will only be one, the +92. The second scenario that we are going to go through is the cloned child. So this one's super common. Parents and guardians, they both take the initiative, don't necessarily communicate that they're going to register their child, and they go ahead and both do it. So if we take a look, and in a lot of the scenarios, I would recommend searching the player. So instead of looking up one of the adults, if you look up the player, you should see any potential results for that child. In this case, we're going to look at Melissa Jr. LeagueApps, and I'm going to open these up into two different tabs so we can see kind of what's up with both of these accounts. When I'm clicking into both of these tabs, you'll see at the top LeagueApps family. So right out of the gate, they're in a family account, which is good. If I click LeagueApps family in both of them, we're likely going to see two different parents, Mark LeagueApps, and in this one, Melissa LeagueApps. Now, what's really important when we're looking at this as we're thinking about who is the primary and who should be the secondary, big recommendation, if they have a registration in the account, keep that one as the primary. You want to make sure that you are not losing any of that past registration history. So we'll work off of this account to merge. So this is going to happen in two parts. First, we want to merge Melissa Jr., and then we want to get the parent from the other account into the correct one. So we're going to use our merge member tool. And we are going to see that the primary is the one that has the registration. Click merge. This is going to consolidate them. And now we'll have one Melissa LeagueApps. And if I click back into the family account, I'll see that here. One Melissa Jr. Now we want to focus on getting the other parent, where if I refresh, now the child is gone. We want to get Mark LeagueApps into this family account, because as it stands, Mark will not get any information having to do with the registration. He is not tied to Melissa Jr. LeagueApps at this time. In order to do that, we want to remove him from the family account. So in order to do that, you'll click the X on the right-hand side, and you'll notice this message is not telling you that it is deleting Mark from LeagueApps entirely. He is just being removed from this family account. So click yes, remove user from group account. Mark is still in LeagueApps. We want to come to the correct family account here and now just merge him in. Now, we're using the term merge. We're kind of pulling him in as a user. So we're not using the merge member tool in this case. We're clicking add user. We're going to pull in a supervisor, parent, and we're going to look for an existing user. This is where we can search for Mark. There's a couple of them, but I'm looking for Mark LeagueApps, and you can click this curved arrow. Give it a second to refresh. Both parents will now show up tied to Melissa Jr. This add user tool is also very powerful. There will be scenarios where parents create separate accounts and need to be pulled into one another, or perhaps you have information for the additional parent or guardian and you need to add them yourself. Add user, and this will allow you to either pull in someone that already exists in LeagueApps or add somebody from scratch as a new user. Okay, so the third scenario here that we're going to walk through is the ghost account. So a partner or parent can't see an invoice on the user dashboard. That's one of the more common ways that we have this come up. They log in, they're not seeing a registration for their player, they're not seeing an invoice. And the likely result of that is because they have two different accounts, or the parent's account is not associated with the player. So we're going to use Joanna Johnson as our example here. And similar to the other ones, I typically open up any of the accounts in separate windows so that I can have a holistic view and just click into the different tabs as needed. So if I'm looking at Joanna Johnson in this one, I notice right off the bat, there's no family account. So if they should be tied to a player, I already know something is wrong because it doesn't say Johnson family up at the top. If I click into this one, I do have Johnson family. So right out of the gate, I'm tempted to say this is going to be our primary account. And if I click Johnson family, I can confirm that by seeing, yes, Jack Johnson is the player. There's a registration here. Let's maintain this account and keep it as the primary. So I'll come back into this member profile for Joanna and click merge member. There's some old accounts here in the system. So I'm just going to work with this last one to merge this member in. And once I do that, they will be consolidated into one account. So if I come back and I search Joanna Johnson, there we go, and hit enter, there's just one. And if I come to the account, she is associated with the Johnson family with the player, Jack Johnson. Now, when we're on this page, another scenario that you'll see quite often, and let me just pull this in, is that the parent is actually just separated from the player altogether. So they're on one page, and instead of the parent showing up with the player, Jack just shows up on its own. So let me pull that in. So you'll search for the player's name. Mom, dad, parent, guardian isn't getting any information for them, and you come to the family account and notice, well, there's no parent associated with it. This is where we can come back to this add user button and look for that parent. Existing user, search Joanna. We'll see Joanna Johnson here, and we can pull that person in. Now they'll be associated with all of the messaging. So those are the three situations that we kind of wanted to outline. Those are the most common merge member options, some things that I just want to reinforce outside of this importance of using the primary member's information, just what comes hand in hand with that. The secondary information you'll see on a member's profile, their email, their mobile number, the secondary information will be lost when that member is merged in. It will always take on the primary. So you want to keep that in mind as you're merging in, if they do want to keep that email address on file. That duplicate or secondary member, they're deleted from the site, and that's irreversible. So as you're merging them in, you're losing that secondary person's data. Participants in the same program are going to cause an error. So if there are two Jack Johnsons in the system and both parents or both accounts have a registration for the same program, this is very important. You'll want to make sure that you are removing one of the registrations. So whichever one you're going to get rid of, you just want to come to that registration listing and delete that player's registration. Otherwise, the system will flag as it being a duplicate registration, which is something that we have in place to not allow. So that is another scenario that will cause an error. Same thing goes hand in hand if a staff member is registered in the same program and you're merging. So as a general rule, they cannot be on the same program and merge together. And then in all successful cases, the merged user would no longer be in that previous program. So as you're pulling them in, any of that previous information will be pulled in with it, as long as, again, you don't get the error message that they're registered into two different programs. So those are the likely scenarios, and I'm just taking a quick look here at our Q&A to just see if there's anything that should be addressed across the board, and I'll kind of give everybody a second if there are any other scenarios they might want to chat through or any questions that you might have. So give me 1 second while I review the questions. Okay, so it looks like we just had a question come in about deleting a member from the site by accident. What is lost? So any information that is associated with that participant, as far as their emails, the registration information, all of that would be removed. If there is an invoice tied to that participant, we can undelete a member with that. As long as we have a member ID, that is something that we can recover. But as a general rule, if you're looking at somebody's account, so I'll come back to one of our members, any information that is associated with them, with the exception of invoices and transaction history, would be lost. So if they're registered and they have invoices and have paid through LeagueApps, you'll still be able to track that information. They just won't be searchable members here in this menu bar. So you could always come in to manage invoices and find them there to just track down any open invoices. And you can also search them in reporting and transactions. Great question. Let's see if there's anything else here. So another question that came up, can we run a report that identifies duplicate or common data in order to correct? Right now, it seems like it needs to be brought to the admins in order to be corrected. So the answer for that, you can export your member database, and there are ways in the CSV file that shows up to search and find duplicate members, so you can be proactive about the process. So if you were to come in to manage members and export to CSV from here. Again, once you get that, you can run, a dedupe on registry or on members that have the same first name and last name. Email addresses, nobody can have the same email address in LeagueApps. It'll always flag as a duplicate. But if you have any other questions about this, just reach out to support@leagueapps.com. They can give a little bit more specific, but this is where we would start and kind of use the tools in Excel to help address. See if there's anything else. Yeah, just to reinforce here on the deleting a member from the site by accident, definitely reach out to your customer success manager or to support at leagueapps.com if this does happen, because we can help investigate and see if we can get that member recovered, as long as they have an invoice again. And there's some other tricks that we can help get that recovered. And when that happens, you get all of their registration information and whatnot recovered along with it. So just keep us posted on that. So a great question in the Q&A here. I see duplicate accounts. If our members are unable to recover their password and unable to log in, how do we send them a new password to avoid this? Great question. So a big thing that you can do if you're going back and forth with a parent, you think it would just be easier to reconcile for them because they can't figure out their username or password. If you come to their account, so Melissa LeagueApps, for example, you want to come to the parents account and edit their member profile. You can just give them a generic hello 123 and ask them to log into their account from there to update that information to something for themselves. But if you can avoid changing the password, you can send them the login link, which does link them directly to a forgot your password. I know sometimes it gets a little complicated. There's a lot of back and forth, and it's sometimes easier to just update the password yourself and have them log in and take care of it. But when you can, just bring them to the login page. They can click forgot your password, and they should just be pinged right away with a link to recover a new one. Okay, I think that is everything we have right now in the Q&A and in our chat. So thank you to everybody who has contributed. If there are any other questions at all, please don't hesitate to reach out again to your customer success manager or to support at leagueapps.com. We're really happy to help in these scenarios, and we'll also be following up with a copy of this recording so you can refer back to it as you're making changes. I know sometimes they can get a little bit messy. So if you're ever unsure which one you should go with, just reach out to us. We're happy to guide you through it and walk through it, in context. But hopefully this was helpful with some of the more common ways and common scenarios we see come up. And in the meantime, just know that we have all of these resources here to help. Leagueapps.com/product updates, anything that's new with LeagueApps that you should be aware of. Support.leagueapps.com, which just allows you to search across our whole database of information to get articles and webinars. Events.leagueapps.com to join any of our content. We're really trying to bring our LeagueApps community together, especially as things are still a little crazy out there. So we love to see people joining those. And then contact support@leagueapps.com or live chat with any questions at all. So just keep us posted how we can help. Thank you again so much for joining, and have a great rest of your day.